Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, the chapter about Dhruva Maharaj leaving home. And it's text 25 that we'll chant. But as usual, we'll focus on a group of verses. Naradas tad upakarnya gyatva tasya chikirshitam sprishtva murdan yaga ganena panina prahavismitaha. Narada, the great sage Narada, tat, that, upakarnya, overhearing, yatva, and knowing, tasya, his, Dhruva Maharaj's, chikirshitam, activities, sprishtva, by touching, murdani, on the head, aga gnena, which can drive away all sinful activities, panina, by the hand, praha, said, vismita, being surprised. Translation: the great sage Narada overheard this news, and understanding all the activities of Dhruva Maharaj, he was struck with wonder. He approached Dhruva and, touching the boy's head with his all virtuous hand, he spoke as follows. Purport. When Dhruva Maharaj was talking with his mother, Suniti, of all the incidents that had taken place in the palace, Narada was not present. Thus, the question may be raised how Narada overheard all these topics. The answer is that Narada is Trikala Gya. He is so powerful that he can understand the past, future, and present of everyone's heart, just like the super soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, after understanding the strong determination of Dhruva Maharaj, Narada came to help him. It may be explained in this way. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is present in everyone's heart, and as soon as he understands that a living entity is serious about entering devotional service, he sends his representative. In this way, Narada was sent to Dhruva Maharaja. This is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Guru Krishna Pasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. By the grace of the spiritual master and Krishna, one can enter into devotional service. Because of Dhruva Maharaj's determination, Krishna, the super soul, immediately sent his representative, Narada, to initiate him. Om Agana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. let's begin by talking about Narada Muni's process for being informed. You could say it's quite mystical. The verse talks about upakarnya, overhearing. So Prabhupada in the purport addresses the point that ordinarily, how could Narada Muni overhear the whole drama going on in the palace and the conversation between Dhruva's mother and Dhruva? Narada Muni's not physically there. So first we need to understand that Narada Muni is no ordinary entity. He's empowered. He's empowered to spread bhakti all over the universe. And he can even enter the spiritual world. Narada Muni is basically a Vaikuntha devotee, a devotee of Lord Narayan, but he has special access even into the topmost portion of the spiritual world. So it's not that Narada Muni is omniscient. He's not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the complete whole, but he's empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, through his connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can know. Sometimes devotees, they wonder, how much does the spiritual master know? The Shastra explains that the spiritual master is just the tiny servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But to be a tiny servitor is no small thing. To be a servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the most glorious position. That's why Lord Chaitanya pointed out the aspirations of a genuine devotee. Gopi Bhartu Pada Kamalaya Dasa Dasa Nudasa. Servant of the servant of the servant. That is the highest position. Or you could say Dasi, Dasi Anudasi. In the contemporary context. In any case, I hope you get the point that our goal in bhakti is not to be the Lord of material nature, and we don't want to be the Lord of other devotees. We want to be servant leaders, demonstrating how to follow in the footsteps of our predecessors. Humility is such an important part of bhakti. Bhakti is not an excuse to strut your stuff, so to speak. If we want to chant Hare Krishna with taste and constancy, continuity, we have to fulfill Lord Chaitanya's instruction, which is Tranadapi Sunichena Taroiva Sahishnana. And this is our challenge, how to truly be humble while dynamically executing devotional service. There seems to be a contradiction here. Narada Muni's overhearing of the palace drama could be looked at from another way, because Narada Muni is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So therefore, you're looking at the same situation, mind you, from different angles. First, from the viewpoint of Narada Muni, looking just at him, our looking at Narada Muni shows us that he's no ordinary personality. He has powers. He can go anywhere in the universe. He can even enter the spiritual world. Looked at another way, Krishna is the source of all powers. And so Krishna, in the heart of Dhruva Maharaj, noted little Dhruva's determination. And therefore, Krishna, in the heart of Narada Muni, sent Narada Muni. This is actually an explanation that Srila Prabhupada gave for what happens on Sankirtan book distribution in particular. When a devotee sincerely tries to introduce Krishna to someone else, Krishna, in the heart of the devotee, notices, you are so sincere. And therefore, Krishna, in the heart of the person being approached, says, this person who's talking to you is very sincere. You should take the book, or you should take you should do what this person is saying. So in this way, there's teamwork in outreach. And this is one of the reasons why outreach can be so fascinating. You can experience for yourself the teamwork between Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master in the heart, super soul, and the devotee, all acting for the welfare of the conditioned soul, being approached, being cultivated. So this is the bhakti magic, the coordination between the super soul in the heart as Chaitya Guru and the outreacher, the Sankirtan devotee, the book distributor, the cultivator, all involving the welfare of an individual jiva, lost spirit soul, who needs to be reminded, who needs to be awakened. So why is Narada Muni said to be struck with wonder? Looking forward, you'll see that he's amazed. This is just a little boy. He's practically 5 years old, yet he's taking an insult so deeply. Generally, it's hard to praise or criticize a little kid. They don't know what to make of it. They like getting attention. They don't like being restricted, sit in the corner, or you put down your iPad, or they don't like that. Of course, these days, many of our adults have shown that they consider the slightest restriction to be fascism. But that's another subject. Anyway, so Dhruva is just a little tot. So Narada Muni's amazed. Why are you so full of yourself? But then again, Narada Muni is not amazed, because he says, this is a Kshatriya boy. And as Krishna explains in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Kshatriyas have Ishvara Bhava, a sense of prestige that manifests through control. And Yuddhe Chapyapalayanam, Krishna says, the Kshatriya never turns his back in battle, never flees from a battle. So Narada Muni is surprised to see such pronounced Kshatriya qualities in Dhruva, even at the age of 5. Dhruva can't handle the insults that his stepmother hurled at him. So we can go forward into Narada Muni's handling of the situation with Dhruva, but why don't we go backwards and see what Dhruva Maharaj's mother, see how she instructed Dhruva. We spoke about this last weekend briefly. We ended up on that note, but we'll start on that note today. The insults by Saruchi, you all, I hope, are familiar with them. She basically told Dhruva 3 things. You better learn to discriminate between me and your mother. You better understand that I am the one and your mother is the outcast. And if you really want to sit on your father's lap and get affection from your father, you need to perform severe austerities, penances, and you may, if you please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you may have the opportunity to take birth in my womb. So what's the point in your trying to climb on your father's lap when you haven't qualified yourself? And finally, the third thing is that she's basically telling Dhruva, you're an illegitimate child. You're born from an illegitimate womb, which is not true. But Saruchi is basically saying that your mother's not really even your father's wife. She's just some woman who happens to be around, and you are her son. Therefore, you are illegitimate. So, what is Suniti's response going to be? She's teaching us how to handle the situations that all of us will encounter in the material world. All of us will have to know how to process the uncomfortable or even painful situations that arise in material existence. She tells Dhruva, whatever your stepmother Saruchi says, yes, it's so harsh, extremely harsh. We talked last time about how harshness is the symptom of an uncontrolled tongue, and how Krishna in Bhagavad Gita in the 17th chapter explains the austerities of the tongue. Anudvega karam, not speaking words that agitate, and speaking words that are beneficial, satyam, priyam, hitam, dear, words that endear the other person to you. And of course, swajaya bhyasanam chaiva, speaking the Shastra. So yes, Saruchi had just basically blown up the world with her harsh words, her razor blade words. And so Suniti is saying, actually, there's truth in what she's saying, although she expressed herself so harshly and is causing so much pain in me, your mother, and you, Dhruva. But here's the thing. If you want indeed to sit on the throne along with your stepbrother Uttama, give up your envious attitude and immediately try to execute the instructions of your stepmother. Don't delay. Immediately engage in bhakti, engage in devotional service. I've noticed that sometimes when our devotees encounter some difficult situation in devotional service, they can drop their service participation and basically just hide out or recede or go into their cave. And this is a great mistake, because any opportunity that we see for serving Krishna, we should grab it. If we deprive ourselves of devotional service, we're doing ourselves the greatest injustice. So yes, there are disagreements among devotees. Often devotees see things differently among themselves, but we should never stop serving. And we don't have to be a manager or a department head or have some supervisory role in order to render devotional service. We can just pick up a broom and sweep the floor. We can wash pots, but we're so desperate for devotional service. I was really relishing. I didn't tell him that, but because of the lockdowns in Auckland, it's restricted the possibilities of devotees coming together. And so I had some IT work I needed done on my laptop and various devices, which I had put off this work for months because I was confined to Australia. I couldn't come back to New Zealand. And so the devotee who handles my IT affairs, Chandidas Prabhu, wasn't able to connect with me, especially in the Auckland area. There were restrictions. But at the first opportunity, when I returned, I asked him, please come and sort out my IT affairs. And I'll never forget. He didn't know that I noticed so hugely, but I did. He came in the door. Devotional service! Like a drowning man seeing an oasis finally. At last, I get a chance to do devotional service. So this is the kind of attitude we should have. Not that unless I'm the manager, unless I'm in charge, I won't do any service. Or I can't do any service. I have to be the boss. Because we live in a society of devotees, there'll be some social misunderstandings from time to time. But if we if we toss out our devotional service, we're doing ourselves the greatest harm. And sometimes maybe we don't render service in this way, but there's always service available in that way. So the principle is we want to please Krishna somehow. If Krishna makes us a leader, if he gives us that austerity and penance, okay. But if we just sweep the floor, do something menial, because all Krishna's service is menial. Just some services appear more menial than others to external vision. So here we have a crisis in terms of Dhruva wanting a material desire. And his mother is telling him, your stepmother, although speaking so very harshly, said something of extraordinary value. And you should drop your envy, because Dhruva was definitely angry and envious. I want more than what anyone else in my family line has had. I want a bigger kingdom. And I want revenge against my stepmother. And I want revenge against my father because he said nothing while she insulted me. So remember, Dhruva is so upset that Narada Muni is amazed. He's wondering, I've never seen such behavior in a little child, taking an offense so seriously. So Suniti tells Dhruva, immediately, without delay, execute the instructions of your stepmother. She said the right thing, although her motives were horrible. So in this way, indirectly, the words of Suruchi were a benediction, because prodded, motivated by the influence of Suruchi's words, Dhruva became such an extraordinary bhakta. So this is an example of the fullness of bhakti yoga, how to use everything for advantage, everything for Krishna's pleasure, for advancing his service. Sometimes it'll be hard to see how to do this, but if we have that desire, how can I use these distressing, painful circumstances to move ahead in your service? I can't see it, but Krishna, I'm praying to you, you empower me, please, to see your service opportunities, even in this situation. We have that firm understanding that bhakti is perfect and complete because Krishna is perfect and complete. Bhakti is not just it's not just an activity that we do when there's material happiness. We're not sunshine religionists. When the good times are rolling, we're very devotional. But when inevitably in this material world, crunch time comes, then we throw away our devotion. Why is Krishna doing this to me? Why is Krishna allowing this to happen to me? Our human side will respond like that most of the time, but we need to counteract that with transcendental knowledge. And it takes an effort. But this is how to claw your way back to the spiritual platform. It can feel literally like you're climbing up a wall by using your fingernails. It can actually feel that way. But Krishna is in the heart and he's noting your determination, just like he noted Dhruva's determination. So Suniti, Dhruva's mother, is telling him, you're feeling uncomfortable, to say the least, but devotional service, worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is never uncomfortable for anyone. So stop just hating Suruchi. Suniti's such a saintly person. She's been just outcast, neglected. And yet she's saying, don't hate Suruchi. I know that what I'm going through is just my karma. Sometimes the question is raised, well, and we touched upon it briefly last time, why didn't Suruchi just walk out? She's not being abused materially, but she's in a devastating emotional situation, but yet she's being maintained by Uttama luxuriously. And she does have a son, It's just that intrigues in this world and situations in this world can feel so demolishing. So yes, Suniti has a lot materially going for her. She's living on the lap of luxury, but she's just not getting the attention from her husband. Now, in contemporary culture, or if you want to call it culture, you know what would probably happen. Forget this guy. He's done nothing for me lately. But last night we were speaking about how even the wife of Ravana is famous as being a very chaste, controlled, self-controlled lady. What to speak of Gandhari, the wife of Dhritarashtra, and Draupadi, and of course, the topmost emblem in that department is Sita Devi. And even Mandodari, the wife of Ravana, is famous as being very upstanding and chaste. So we were discussing last night, for those of you who didn't hear, how in today's so-called culture, no one knows what chaste is. One devotee messaged me that when she was a new devotee in 1994 and first heard talk about being chaste, she thought, this is a very interesting cult. It advocates women being chaste, C-H-A-S-E-D. Because the word, it sounds like from medieval times, you know. But we spoke last night about how Srila Prabhupada points out that such a self-controlled, virtuous lady, just by being duty conscious, commitment conscious. Now, we're not talking about the kind of violent abuse that goes on these days. So let's get that out of our mind. You know? We're such a self-controlled lady personality develops mystic powers. You get that? So it's not some kind of slavery system. And as we said, we're not talking about tolerating abuse. So think about that. Such lady personalities, just by acting with duty and commitment, develop mystic power. So basically, Suniti's telling Dhruva, don't worry about me. I'm going through what I got to go through. But here's the thing. If you want to get what you want, I'm going to give you confirmation that your envious stepmother told you the right thing. So in a real human civilization, you refer to your predecessors, you refer to your elders. Just like Krishna did to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. This behavior, your talk about not fighting, is not befitting someone who's from such a family line as you. You're a real Aryan, part of a culture that is centered on spiritual advancement. And Krishna would always refer to Arjuna as, oh, son, scion of Bharata, in various ways. Krishna would refer to Arjuna's family line as encouragement for Arjuna to do the right thing. So Suniti is going to point out, look at your great-grandfather, Lord Brahma. Just by worshiping the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he acquired the ability to create the universe. He's a living being. Generally, Lord Brahma is a jiva, a living entity. Sometimes, though, there's no living entity qualified to take the post, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead takes the post of Brahma. But in this case that Suniti is referring to, Dhruva's great-grandfather, it's Brahma, a jiva, yet, although a living being, he acquired the ability to create the universe. So again, Suniti's confirming what Suruchi said, although Suruchi spoke so harshly, with such viciousness. So from pointing out what Dhruva's great-grandfather did, Lord Brahma, she now points out what his grandfather did, the son of Lord Brahma, who is Swayambhuva Manu. Your grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, performed great sacrifices and accompanied by profuse distribution of charity and with unflinching faith and devotion, he worshiped and satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so she said, in this way, your grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, achieved the greatest success in material happiness and afterwards achieved liberation. She knows Dhruva is materially motivated, so she didn't preach to him about pure devotional service. Your grandfather got material happiness, the greatest, by doing this, by worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he got liberation after enjoying material happiness. That's what an ordinary Vedic person would think is the topmost. But of course, Bhagavatam will teach you that nothing compares to pure bhakti. Because by pure bhakti, even Krishna comes under its control. But ordinarily speaking, in a real human society, such as what we don't have today, in a real human society, the currency, so to speak, is material happiness in this life and liberation in the next. Bhakti is beyond that. But if in a normal human civilization, these are the goals for most people. And so they worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead to achieve these goals. And gradually, they become purified. As Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvida bhajante mam jana sukritino arjuna. Of the four kinds of persons who approach Krishna with not pure motives, one of them is someone who wants wealth. Another is someone who's distressed. You could say Dhruva was both distressed and he wanted wealth. He wanted a greater kingdom than anyone in his family line. His prominent motivation seems to be the prosperity. So Suniti is motivating him. Look at what your grandfather got in terms of material happiness and liberation. You can't get this by worshiping the devatas, the demigods. Why? Because the demigods are temporary, and therefore whatever they give will be temporary. But you are the spirit soul. You need a spiritual benediction. As spirit soul, you can't truly benefit by anything temporary. And that Temporariness is all that the devatas give. So she's really pointing Dhruva in the right direction. She's telling him, go to Britya Vatsala. That's another name for Krishna, it means one who's very kind to his devotees. Take shelter of that Supreme Personality, who is Britya Vatsala. Always engage in his service. So she's being very humble and straightforward with Dhruva. You came to me crying, having been insulted by your stepmother. But I can't do any good for you. What can I do? I'm the outcast wife. It's true, I'm living in luxury and extraordinarily well maintained. But in terms of emotional reciprocation with your father, I'm not getting that. And the other wife is reigning supreme as the apple of his eye and the sunshine of his life. I'm in the darkness. But let me tell you about Britjavatsala. Krishna is so kind to his devotees. If you go to Krishna, you'll find the affection and mercy and tenderness of millions of mothers. In fact, that affection, that tenderness and kindness will surpass what millions of mothers can give you. Even though it seems everyone and everything else has failed to stop your misery, Krishna is able to help. So just see the crucial instruction that Suniti is giving. And she's pointing out that if you ask me, there's no one who can solve your distress problem but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She's really giving him the positive and the negative. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Britjavatsala, so kind and affectionate. And then there's the negative. No one else can give what you want. No one else can give what I have failed to give also. Millions of mothers with their affection and tenderness cannot compare to what the Supreme Personality of Godhead can give. You want material opulence, Dhruva? You want the greatest kingdom? You're not a pure devotee. Still, better go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and not the demigods. So Suniti knew that by the process of approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even with material desires, Dhruva would gradually become purified. So as Prabhupada describes in one purport, Suniti, Dhruva's mother, was a far-seeing woman. We need millions of such women and men like Suniti, far-seeing. Amidst her grief, she could still see what is the goal of life and how to achieve it. Amidst her pain, so now you're going to hear about bhakti proactiveness. Proactiveness is considered to be a great virtue today. So much so that it doesn't really matter what you're doing, who you're doing it for, or what is your goal. Just be proactive. But remember, the monkeys are very proactive. If you've ever gone to a zoo and watched monkeys, they're very proactive, swinging from branch to branch, running around chattering. But what is the point? All right, Anjali Radhe should turn off her microphone. Thank you. So, the proactiveness you're going to see in this history of Dhruva is that first he thought about it deeply. Bhagavatam says that arta agamam, purposeful. He considered the whole situation deeply. He wasn't a fanatic, just flying off the handle, hot-tempered. He was angry. He was hurt. He wanted revenge. His mother told him, stop being envious. So now, with careful consideration and his purpose in mind, and with intelligence and fixed determination, what did he do? Gone. Left his father's house. Gone to the forest immediately. So both Dhruva and his mother were lamenting about Dhruva having been insulted in such a razor blade slashing way. But Dhruva is historic. He's eternally memorable because of his proactiveness. He didn't just wallow in his lamentation. He was justified in his lamentation, but glorified for his proactiveness. He heard from his mother the means, the way, the modus operandi for mitigating his lamentation. So immediately after consideration, meditating on his purpose, his goals, he swung into action and left his father's house. So that brings us to the point now of the point where we started. Narada Muni overhearing, so to speak. And we just discussed at the beginning of this class about the process of Narada Muni's overhearing. How does it work? Of course, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, you have Sanjaya practicing what you might call remote viewing. He wasn't at the Battle of Kurukshetra, yet he was able to relay to Dhritarashtra exactly what was going on. Even he could relay the conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. How did Sanjaya get that ability? He says, by the mercy of Vyasadeva. So Narada Muni, as we pointed out, is feeling great wonder about why Dhruva is so upset just by insults to a 5-year-old. And also, Narada Muni understands this child has such determination for trying for his goal to have a bigger kingdom than anyone in his family line. Such determination should be focused in devotional service. So I'm going to teach him how to do that. Dhruva is going to think he's going to get his material desire fulfilled by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the process that Narada Muni is going to give to Dhruva will purify Dhruva, so much so that, as you know, when Dhruva does successfully get the darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he says, Swamin Kritatasmi Varam Neyache. I'm 100% and more satisfied just by seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I don't want anything material. And I was searching for broken pieces of glass. I was such a fool. Dhruva's going to lament. We'll talk about this if we meet together about this section of Bhagavatam later. Dhruva's lamentation, because you'll think that why should Dhruva lament? He got it. He scored. He got the material benediction. But no, Dhruva is now a pure devotee at that point, and he's lamenting sincerely. Why did I approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who can end repeated birth and death, yet I approached him to ask for something that would continue repeated birth and death? What a dummy I am. So his lamentation was sincerely felt. He wasn't just putting on, okay, I'll just say these prayers of lamentation. Meanwhile, I got the goodies. No, he's sincerely repenting. What's another example of someone making use of adversity for the greatest spiritual advantage? Vidura, third canto, Vidura, also in the first canto. He tried to give good advice to his brother, Dhritarashtra. How can you maintain such a rascal son as Duryodhana, a non-devotee, who's causing such havoc, who's so envious of Krishna? And Duryodhana flipped out. All of a sudden, Duryodhana flipped out against Vidura, his own uncle, and said, "Get out of here before we beat you and leave you with nothing but your breath. Get out of here. You are friendly with the Pandavas. You're a traitor. Now your colors can clearly be seen." So the Shastra describes, Bhagavatam describes that these words of Duryodhana pierced Vidura and afflicted his heart. So it's not like Vidura was totally unaffected. Yet, although he was so afflicted by the harsh words of Duryodhana, who basically told him, you're a bastard. You're just a son of a kept woman. And all that was so insulting to Vidura's heart, to hear it from your own nephew. Especially Vidura, who's respected by everyone as a great sage, as a great devotee. So yes, even Vidura had to go through such a situation. So you have, as Prabhupada explains, in this situation, a combination of the external energy, Maya, working with the internal potency, Yoga Maya. The external energy influences Duryodhana to be his usual nasty self. But the internal energy is acting also to provide Vidura an opportunity to get out of the palace. And indeed, he does. He takes the opportunity. All right, I'm being insulted. I'm being threatened to be almost killed. This means it's time for me to be out of here and go on pilgrimage to the Tirthas. So he took what is a great setback. He took it as an opportunity to advance his bhakti. So this shows you how bhakti is perfect and complete. What someone would consider a reversal can be used by a proactive devotee for advancing in spiritual life. So Vidura is a great example of that. He immediately left the palace. As you can see in both of these histories, the history of Vidura and the history of Dhruva Maharaj, palaces can be a problem. Of course, none of you have palaces, but you could consider that a material setup can be problematic unless it's simple. But whether your situation is simple or complex, always strive for the spiritual victory. And that spiritual victory begins with and ends with Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtana. Let there be all victory to the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. So as I often point out, we all need our personal victory of that. How we were knocked down, how we were practically strangled by material circumstances, yet by taking more shelter of chanting Hare Krishna, by not giving up our activities in devotional service, some kind of service we do, by doing all that, we came out victorious. So Krishna may put us in situations in which we have to cry out. But if the end result is that we take more shelter of Krishna, then that's the victory. Any way you look at it, this material world is a place of setbacks. Sooner or later, it's a place of disappointment. It's a place of hard work, and then you see whatever you work for just disappear before your very eyes. It can be about money. It can be about relationships. It can be about jobs. It can be about health. Just here today, gone tomorrow. So you have to know how to stand on your own 2 feet amidst whatever money dealings you have, relationships you have, jobs that you have. You have to know how to handle both happiness and distress. Therefore, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, whether in sukha, material happiness, or dukkha, material distress, chant Hare Krishna.